Hello, I'm Steve Punt.
And I'm Hugh Dennis, and thanks for downloading the BBC Radio 4 Friday Night podcast.
Now, this edition of The Now Show first went out on Red Nose Day, and Hugh is still very much in the swing of things with a hilarious red nose on right now.
I'm not wearing a red nose, mate.
Oh.
Anyway, do you enjoy this week's edition of The Now Show?
Are you sure that's real? Hello, I'm Steve Punt.
And I'm Hugh Dennis.
With us are Andrew Maxwell, Ellie Taylor, Pippa Evans, Luke Kempner and Katie Brand. And this is...
The Now Show!
Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's funny, isn't it, how quickly sadness turns to anger. Because Wednesday was a terrible day in London and people were shocked and people were incredibly brave and people helped each other and they reacted in a way that made you proud, and that is what you need.
What you don't need is Katie Hopkins' intervention on Fox News, in which she said that in Britain...
People are cowed! People are scared!
No, people aren't, Katie. What people are, though, is wondering whether you've paid your libel fine yet.
The truth is that we're just getting on with it, which is why, in a week with very little comic relief, it's a relief that it's Red Nose Day.
And if you're listening on Friday, it is Comic Relief Night, an organisation to which we Brits traditionally give generous donations.
And if you're listening on Saturday, it's the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome that led to the formation of the EU. An organisation to which we Brits traditionally give generous donations.
And, of course, there is also comic relief elsewhere, not least in the person of Donald Trump, whose promise that he can magic up better healthcare for more people for less money is, like a laptop on a Middle East airline, just not going to fly with the public. And it turns out that publicly criticising your own intelligence services can come back to haunt you, as the FBI confirmed they are investigating whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia during the election last year. Trump himself denies this, answering all questions with a firm...
Niet. Niet comment.
What's more, it emerged that the investigation into collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign began last July, 4 months before the election, but was kept secret, unlike the re-investigation into Clinton's emails, which was publicly announced 10 days before polling day. A spokesperson for the Clinton campaign said... That was slightly longer than in rehearsal.
Now, the FBI investigation and all the various Trump associates involved is all quite complicated, and we still don't know how much is true or whether Moscow has stuff on the president. There is allegedly the notorious video of Trump in a Moscow hotel room, which I'm inclined not to believe, mainly because you get the feeling that Trump, in somebody else's hotel room, would mostly be caught saying...
This is a terrible hotel. These furnishings are very, very inferior to the furnishings in my hotels. This toilet is not marble, the taps are fake gold, and not even shaped like swans. I complain to TripAdvisor, but I don't listen to advisors.
It's also quite difficult to get compromising material on Trump. He was supposedly filmed saying...
That's it, beautiful. Oh, yeah. You're the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Let me stroke that hair of yours.
But only because the secret camera was hidden behind his mirror. We've also learned this week that it's not just the US that has worries about Russian influence. British high street banks reportedly may have processed $740 million from a money laundering operation with links to Moscow. Although God knows how, given that you can't even set up a direct debit without providing them with a current utility bill.
So before we set up this account, we're going to need 2 forms of ID and proof of your current address.
Certainly, a document here.
I'm afraid I'm having trouble with this. Your gas bill is registered in Ukraine, and that's not in Russia.
Just give it time.
I believe that's what's known as the audience being ahead of you there. So, what with one thing and another, thank heavens for Comic Relief, who have, as ever, been sending celebrities to troubled parts of the world, places that are deeply divided and scarred by conflict.
I've come to a place of civil war. The signs of destruction and division are everywhere. No, honestly, I've never seen anything like the situation here at Labour Party HQ. I met one woman who was to walk 20 miles every day just to find one Labour voter to canvass. I'm here to distribute food and water that has been kindly donated by a Sudanese village. Overhead and yet more signs of division as 3 small planes have just flown over, I know. One with a banner reading Corbyn out, one reading Corbyn in, and the other saying no New Deal for Arsene Wenger.
There were accusations of plots, counterplots and counter-counterplots. A Momentum member on the NEC claimed that Deputy Leader Tom Watson wanted a return to...
a Blairite model of command and control.
You see, I'm not sure that's accurate. What Blair had planned for the left was not just control, it was also alt and delete. It's the same model the Democrats are hoping to use in the US with a slight variation. Control, alt-right, delete.
For now, though, who knows what will happen in the Labour Party?
Actually, we all do. Nothing. Still, with the snap election apparently off the agenda, at least Labour MPs' jobs are safe for now. Some people aren't so lucky and can barely make ends meet.
It's another of the serious bits on the charity appeal. You can tell it's serious because we've got the sad piano music in the background. There are people who need our help. People right here in this country who are barely getting by. People like George. George has to work 5 jobs every day. Advising investment bankers, BlackRock, speaking at the Washington Speakers Bureau, being the chairman of the Northern Powerhouse and being a fellow of the McCain think tank. And occasionally even remembering he's MP for Tatton. But it's not enough. Just to keep up with the bills, George has had to become the editor of the London Evening Standard. And like so many British workers, he's on a 0 hours contract. He gets a massive salary and works virtually 0 hours.
It is pretty tough holding down a journalism job part-time. Even Clark Kent found it tricky. The news was also greeted with bemusement by other newspapers.
Apart from the Daily Express, who were just thankful an immigrant didn't get the job. Although they might be less pleased when they realise that George Osborne is likely to use his Standard post to argue against a hard Brexit. Although we have to be careful here. The BBC has been accused of being too negative about leaving Europe after an episode of Countryfile pointed out how difficult it would be for fruit and vegetable growers without EU workers. 72 MPs signed a statement attacking the corporation. Presumably, those 72 MPs will all be happy to help out with the harvest after 2019.
Oh, my back. These turnips are hard work. I don't mind picking these. It's cabbages I don't like.
Yes. Yes, the last time MPs picked a cabbage, he became leader of the Labour Party.
Hang on, isn't there George Osborne over there?
Yes, he said he could fit in a couple of hours before his paper round.
Ladies and gentlemen, next up is an actor who has a lot to say, which is why they're literally going to flash a light when his time is up. Please welcome Andrew Maxwell.
Yay! Hello! Hello, my friends. You might have noticed from my accent I'm not originally from here. I've lived amongst you for a very long time. I have a slightly different perspective on Brexit to you. We've got a different thing in Ireland, you know. I'm not here to mock you for your decision to leave the EU. Just I'm Irish. We're different people. We've got a different set of neuroses. Like Ireland, we're never leaving the EU. So I tried to work out what would be the Irish equivalent of Brexit. And it took me ages to work it out. And then I thought about it. And I reckon if we were given a vote for it in Ireland, we would vote to leave Bono. No, not in entirely thought through, probably wouldn't win any debates with it. Just a general sense of piss off, boy. Stop telling us what to do, you know? I find myself in this situation, this juncture, quite torn because I'm quite pro-European, what with being European. But I'm also a comedian, so I like ripping it into our continental neighbours, particularly the French. Do we have any French people here? No? Let's talk about them. I love ripping it into the French. It's just envy. You know what I mean? I know it's envy-based. The French know how to live. They don't know how to work, but they know how to live. Cake for breakfast. Just let that sink in. Cake. Pain au chocolat. Oh, it's just a pan. It's chocolate cake. Cake for breakfast. What do we have for breakfast on these rainy, benighted islands? Weetabix. What is it? What is this? Wall insulation. We've been eating it for 100 years and we still don't know whether it's better with hot milk or cold milk. All we know for certain is if you turn your back on it, the spoon won't move. I'm torn. I look around, my fellow Europeans. You know, I want to stay with them, but I don't want to stop mocking them. Italians. The Lord God in his infinite wisdom didn't make them twice. They're an unusual breed. I did a gig here in London one night, and I was asking people where they're from, and I was about to move on with the gig. This guy stood up in the middle of the audience, stood up and went, "Hey, what have you got to say about me?" I'm like, dude, I don't think you quite understand how this works. You can heckle, but you can't volunteer. Where are you from? And he went, "Italy. What have you got to say about me, huh?" Well, you've kind of torn me. What do you want me to be mean? Si, do me. Do me, eh? Wow, your mother's very small. True. It's true. He sits down happy as a clam. This woman stands up and went, "Do me, do me." What, you're Italian as well? Si, do me. Wow, the person you lost your virginity to left straight afterwards on a moped? True. Ciao, Bella. I've lived amongst you a long time. I understand what it's all about. Deep down, you're obsessed with the Germans. You're completely obsessed. Because there's people in this country who think Dad's Army's a documentary. I used to live in Bavaria. They're not what you think they are. They're good people. Yeah, they're all right. But let me tell you something about the Germans. They love a rule. I'm not joking, they love a rule. And not some of them, some of the time. All of them, all of the time. Yeah, they're not going to be any to or froing with this Brexit thing. They just know we have it in paperwork. This is what's happening. They love a rule. You'll never hear this in German. Yeah, I speak German. You will never hear this in German. The only thing anybody in the UK needs to know about the European Union is it's Ireland, yeah? The island to the left of here. That's if you're looking at the map. If you are, you get the idea. The UK does more trade with the Republic of Ireland than it does with Brazil, Russia, India and China, the BRIC nations combined. It's a hell of a statistic, isn't it? I mean, I didn't know it either. It blew my mind the first time I heard it. I mean, I have no idea what we're trading with each other. Presumably, we're just sending stag doos at each other. A much higher rate than we previously imagined. There's just a million idiots in fancy dress on each other's islands at any one time. I want you to know, win, lose, or draw, we're still going to be there. See you later.
Please welcome Welcome back to the Now Show, Ellie Taylor.
As the triggeration of Article 50 looms near, you could easily think leaving the EU will be the most historic change the UK will face in a lifetime. If only that were true. Not so, my friends. Prepare yourself, for something huge is looming close, a seismic shift threatening to challenge the very foundation upon which Britannia stands firm. For we may be about to lose a behemoth, a leviathan, a titan, and all the other words that come up on thesaurus.com when you put in behemoth. For broadcasting giant, Neighbours may soon be unavailable to view on British TV. No, Ellie, you yell. Definitely no, not yes, like the people in the front row. How can it be? Jason Donovan would be turning in his grave if he knew. And was dead. The failure to reach a deal to keep Neighbours airing here has been blamed on Channel 5's new owners of Viacom, an American company who some people have said just don't understand the cultural importance of the show in the UK. And from reading the comments on an online petition that's been set up by Neighbours fans, that seems spot on. Over 17,000 people have signed the petition and left earnest comments like this.
You can't axe Neighbours. It's part of daily life, like tooth cleaning.
And this one.
Neighbours is an institution. It's iconic. It's the N in our DNA.
And then there was this comment, which is my favourite.
Hangovers wouldn't be manageable without a Neighbours session. I might die without it. Do you want that on your conscience?
Two great British institutions mentioned there, Neighbours and, of course, binge drinking. In fairness to Viacom, why would a group of Americans understand the importance of the show? On paper, it's really weird. A soap focusing on a suburban Aussie cul-de-sac and a nearby hotel complex that's been airing for 30 years. So why is it so popular? For 3 decades, it's been there waiting for us, offering blue Melbourne skies and a chirpy dialogue filled with upward inflections and mentions of utes.
Oh no, Lilani, what's happened?
I just found out that I'm adopted. Thank God I'm wearing a bikini.
Neighbours was so popular that for a period when the show aired on BBC One, it went out twice a day. Once at lunchtime and once in the evening. Twice a day. That person was right. Neighbours is like tooth cleaning. Some say its continued popularity in the UK is due to British soaps being a bit miserable and bleak. People like the cheerier, more realistic storylines that Neighbours brings. You know, like when Susan Kennedy slipped on some milk, suffered amnesia and forgot the last 30 years of her life. Or when Harold Bishop fell off a cliff, suffered amnesia and returned 5 years later calling himself Ted. Or the time Toadfish and Dee drove off a cliff on their wedding day and everyone thought Dee was dead, but actually she just suffered amnesia. It all goes off in Ramsay Street, I tell you. If Richard Curtis ever sets a film there, it's going to be called 41 Weddings, 35 Funerals and 3 Cases of Temporary Blindness. And amnesia. I love Australia and Australians, so I told my Aussie husband how upset I was that Neighbours might be yanked off air, and he said...
When was the last time you actually watched it?
I said now wasn't the time to be hung up on details, you Shane Warne-loving, marsupial-faced galah. I don't need to watch it to know that I love it. It's like an elderly relative. You don't need to go and visit them to know they're always there to get money off. I find it comforting that 30 years on, it's still all ticking over. Lassiter's, the coffee shop, evil one-legged Paul Robinson. It's a link to our Aussie cousins. There they are, on the telly, like us, but with nice teeth, vitamin D and more racism. Thank you very much.
So, Comic Relief is particularly close to home for one member of our cast who was one of a team doing their bit this year and is now going to interview himself about it, which would be tricky. So, to help out, please welcome comedy writer and performer Katie Brand and Comic Relief trustee Danny Sriskandarajah.
Hi, Danny. So, Katie, you and I, we've just come back from East Africa.
Yes, we have.
Kenya and Uganda, where we were on this thing called the Red Nosed Convoy, delivering supplies. There's a documentary on last night. So was it eye-opening for you being on that convoy?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, partly because we were all in partners, and my partner was Russell Kane, so I spent 6 days in the car with Russell Kane. And what was eye-opening about Russell Kane is the sheer volume of boiled eggs that man consumes. I did not know that. I also did not know that because of the sound recording, we wouldn't be able to open the windows. So that was literally an eye-opening and eye-watering first morning. But I think we all found that just the sort of general life force of the people that we met, even though they were under very awful circumstances and had very limited infrastructure and challenging lives, and I mean, and they would have every right to feel sort of weak and hopeless, and given the fact, in some cases, how hungry they are. But people had a lot of motivation and energy to make their lives better, and so part of our mission was to bring them some of the equipment that would help them do that. I think
and actually, the people who felt weak and helpless generally were us.
Yes.
Weren't we? And you were talking about opening the window. The only time we managed to open the window in the week we were there was when David Baddiel, who was navigating for me, and he assured me that we were going the right way up this road. And it turned out we were driving the wrong way up a dual carriageway. And we got stopped by the police, and I had to open the window to talk to the policeman.
Oh, really?
In a very British kind of, I'm terribly sorry.
And I think we were all, for a very, very clever, educated and informed man, he seemed to know very little about where we were. And this was exemplified on the first morning where Russell bounded up and said, "I'm learning Swahili from an app." And David issued the immortal line standing in the middle of Nairobi. "Why is that, Russell? Are you going somewhere where they speak Swahili?"
So, I mean, the documentary is a mixture of fact and entertainment, really. And it was to show the good work that Comic Relief does. But I'm right in thinking this, aren't I, Danny, that the supplies generally aren't normally delivered by celebrities in a big convoy.
So actually, you'll find a lot of out-of-work comedians in Africa.
Yeah.
It's full of them. They're good at delivery, apparently.
Yeah. I mean,
is that what Cannon and Ball were doing?
How does Comic Relief actually work?
Generally, we work to identify projects in the UK, but also all over the world, where we can achieve the mission that people entrust us with, which is to create a just world free from poverty. So we identify key areas. If you take something like malaria, we'll say this is an area we want to make a real difference in, and then we'll invite the professionals, the experts at delivering bed nets or whatever it is that they're doing.
Us,
That's you. You are now the experts at delivering bed nets.
And how do you select the celebrities? How far down the list?
After 30 years, we're scraping the bottom, I feel.
Do you know what I found really interesting about the whole thing, actually, was in all these projects that you go to, how it is the simplest things that make the biggest difference.
If you take malaria, for example, we've halved the lives lost to malaria over the last few years in Africa. It's immense success stories, and one of the things that has made the biggest difference is, of course, bed nets. It cost a few quid. If we get them to the right people, it's an effective and fantastic way of fighting one of the most atrocious diseases to affect humanity.
Things we all noticed was how quickly the equipment that we brought was put to use. I mean, it was immediate, wasn't it? We went to a health clinic with a big maternity unit, and you brought in some beds, put up the beds, and sort of within 5 minutes, a pregnant woman was on the bed being examined. Or we brought an ultrasound machine to a midwife, and literally they plugged in the ultrasound machine. She had a kind of 10-minute lesson on it, and then she was doing an ultrasound. And we brought bikes, didn't we? 100 bikes to health workers, unloaded from the lorry. Yeah. People were riding them away, health workers who wanted to get on with the day.
Yeah, I had to stop David Baddiel doing that.
Well, if that has persuaded you that you'd like to give some money, then this is what you need to know.
To donate £5, text CONVOY to 70205.
Or to donate £10, text CONVOY to 70210.
Text costs £5 or £10 plus your standard network message charge. 100% of your donation will go to Comic Relief.
You must be 16 or over, and please ask the bill payer's permission. For full terms and conditions and more information, go to bbc.co.uk/Red Nose Day. And thank you very much to Katie Brad and Danny Sriskandarajah. And now, please welcome Pippa Evans.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Dame Vera Lynn. My friends call me Vera, but you can call me Dame Vera Lynn. I turned 100 years old this week, and Not bad for the nation's sweetheart. It turns out, after this week's events, you still need me here in Blighty. I suppose you're feeling sad, maybe angry and confused. After all, we are a nation used to laughing at the news. But when threats play out and lives are lost, the jokes seem far away. Is laughter now the price we have to pay? Hell no, we all cry out. You won't shut London down. This nation won't stop laughing. We will smile instead of frown. We are not afraid. That's not what we do. You can desist, Mr. Terrorist, for the joke is now on you. So wipe your tears aside. We are British, we don't cry. Just proclaim with confidence, I had something in my eye. Drink with friends and have a wheeze. Giggle at obscenities. Stay close to your families. Together, Britain, we will stand for our green, apart from areas of dense urbanization and pleasant
Well, it is Comic Relief weekend, so we have asked our audience this week to just tell us a joke. What's the difference between an egg and a Star Wars fan? An egg gets laid.
What do you call a Frenchman in sandals? Philippe Philop.
What I like about this one is that a 5-year-old has sneaked into the recording. Why did the baker's hand smell? He needed a poo.
I went to the zoo, but all they had was one dog. It was a Shih Tzu.
OK, so what we've learnt there is that next week we're just going to ask the audience to write jokes down. So thank you very much indeed for those. I hope they have cheered you up. And thank you indeed for listening, and goodbye.
You've been listening to The Now Show, starring Steve Punch, Hugh Dennis, Andrew Maxwell, Ellie Taylor, Pippa Evans, Luke Keller, Casey Brand and Danny Sri Skandaraja. It was written by the cast with additional material from Gareth Gwynn, Liam Byrne, Dan Hooper and Jenny LaVille. The producer was Casey Tyrrell. It was a BBC Studios production. That was The Now Show from Friday Night Comedy on BBC Radio 4. If you've enjoyed this download, why not visit the Radio 4 website, where you'll find other programmes to download and keep forever, entirely free.